Eagle 6 in the track.
Roger.
Over 1 bombs away. One's going to climb high above 20. You're south.
Eagle 6 radar contact. Eagle 6 is visual.
And it goes left.
Welcome back to the DCS SITREP. I'm your host, Prickly Hedgehog, and here we are once again examining news and information about DCS World. Last week, ED reminded us that their 15-year celebratory sale continues with up to 60% off modules in the game right now. It's a good chance, therefore, to pick up some great savings, and I encourage you to do so. Especially helpful if you're bundling modules together with, say, campaigns and or other modules like terrains in the unprecedented discounts available right now from Eagle Dynamics in the eStore. One of those fabulous modules is the FA-18C Hornet, which is an ED product and has been around for many years now. The bug is about to get something of a major overhaul here, thanks in part to a revealed new flight model Wags mentioned in a recent interview with Mover and Gonki, and some teaser shots here of the new pilot model. And specifically here we're talking about the new interchangeable helmets, which look really stunning and will add some authenticity for those high fidelity cinematics so many people love to do. Really cool looking there. Now, what I'm particularly excited about, and I'm sure you are too, as part of all of this eye candy, and certainly no mean feat by ED to produce, is the announced and much awaited and certainly anticipated introduction of plane directors to the supercarrier flight deck. Remember that the supercarrier is a separate module. You can pick that up for a discount in the eStore right now. The blurb describes as follows. ED say, we continue to add the logic and animations that govern how aircraft are directed from a parking location to a catapult, and how aircraft are directed out of the landing area after recovery. This includes new yellow shirt plane directors and brown shirt plane captains. Aircraft will be handed off between multiple plane directors to reach their assigned catapults with realistic animations. This is so cool. I can't wait to see this. So closed beta testing of this is ongoing. Unfortunately, I'm not a closed beta tester, but that would be cool. There is a complex and time-consuming task to account for a myriad of conditions that could break the logic, so things could go haywire. So they are asking us to be patient as they strive to complete this new feature soon. Now, what does soon mean? I don't think it's going to be in this upcoming patch, but you never know. But nonetheless, the fact that they're talking about it is good news. So the takeaway is that there is a hint here of the complexity of this particular thing to achieve, which is likely why further enhancements to the supercarrier has taken so long. If they're going to make it work, it will add a layer of realism and immersion not seen in an aircraft simulation in any video game anywhere, bar none. This is one of the best simulations, if you like, of an aircraft carrier that I am aware of. And in many respects, the supercarrier is a working module and as a game in itself. ED really have established a pretty high bar, I think, to bring this kind of realism to the game. And it still produces a degree of adrenaline, in fact, a lot of adrenaline, landing on the boat and even the stoniest of virtual pilots. It's not perfect by any stretch, I must admit, but I challenge you again to find anything similar in a module out there in a video game right now, outside of some sort of generated cinematic or something like that. I'm not aware of anyone doing a supercarrier module of this nature in a game or as a flight sim in total. It's pretty darn cool. So what about plane directors and ground crew operatives for land-based activities, you ask? Well, this has been discussed before, and yes, ED has indicated directly on X this week when they announced this on that platform that will be implemented after the supercarrier stuff is added. There's no time frame on that, unfortunately, but I suspect that the lessons learned from the supercarrier logic will benefit the land-based ground crew logic implementation, so I don't think that would take them as long. So we'll have to stay tuned on that. I think it's a really cool thing, and I can't wait to see this in game because I think the whole concept is cool, and if they get it working, it's just gonna it's just such a cool achievement, and I love what they've done thus far. There's still some other tweaks to come to that supercarrier, to the ready room and stuff like that. They want to add the air boss, and there was discussion about whether that was still coming along. According to Wags, it's coming along. So I don't know if Wombat's going to be the air boss. I actually threw out a shout to Ward Carroll and Mike Nasty Manazza if they knew anybody with the appropriate chops. I didn't hear back, unfortunately. I know both of those guys are very busy, but it'd be cool to see somebody with some real chops do the air boss. And of course, it has to be somebody with the appropriate chops. So we'll see how that goes. Again, anything that boosts this kinds of immersion is tremendous for the game. And I noted too that ED is running a Q&A right now between the development team and the community to better gauge feedback on developmental priorities. Now, given the sprawling nature of the game, it covers quite a few areas, World War II up until current sort of Gen 4 aircraft, give or take roughly. I imagine the feedback will be quite variable. But some broad themes will likely be garnered for the team, and I think that's important. It's a positive thing. I don't know if it'll necessarily change their whole direction, but I'm kind of eager to know more about the multi-threading optimization for DCS Core and the ongoing development of the dynamic campaign. I'm sure those are pretty general themes or general questions that a lot of community members will have. But as I said, there's a myriad of other things also that mean, different things to different players. The mission editor interface has come up a lot as needing an overhaul as well. And Wags in a recent post has provided some feedback about that. They're not planning to overhaul it, but it's certainly getting some tweaks. And it will be subject to change coming up. So there's a lot of things in the works that ED is trying to implement and update and so on and so forth. So, the news is positive. They're not deaf to the community's demands the way some people sometimes indicate. And there certainly has been some scathing criticism, sometimes not always helpful, where people have gone off the deep end on ED. So, I think if you can keep your constructive criticism to constructive criticism, that generally helps. It's a symbiosis rather than shouting from the sidelines and throwing stones. That's easy to do. Anyone can do that, but to actually be a part of the problem solving, I think, is a little bit more challenging, and trying to keep positive relationships with the team, because it doesn't serve any purpose not to. If you just go around and tell them everything sucks, then it's not really productive feedback. So yeah, the good news is that there's really no news, or I should rephrase this. The bad news is we don't really have any productive news, if you like, or tangible news about the dynamic campaign. The good news is that we do have a lot of linear campaigns that are very well done. I've been tinkering a little bit with Sedlow's Inherent Resolve campaign for the F-15E. That's been really done well. So there's a lot of free stuff out. That's a free mission too, by the way. There's a lot of free stuff out there that is extremely well done. It has tons of voiceovers and has been extremely well put together. So within the community itself, there's a lot of cool things going on too. So don't ignore those freebies as being junk. There's some, as I said, some really good free content out there that rivals some of the paid content. And in fact, as I've said before, some of these free modules, like the A4 Skyhawk, for example, rival easily the Flaming Cliffs 3 modules that are purchasable from Eagle Dynamics. It's just, unfortunately, some of them are not official products, but who knows, that may change in the future. All right, moving along, I've had requests for more information on the plethora of other projects in the works from third-party developers for DCS World. And to be fair, it's really hard to keep track of all of these projects as a one-man show. Now and again, I'll get snippets that pop up on a Discord feed, and I try to make a note of those things during the week and bring them into the videos, but I'm not always able to sit here and monitor non-stop these little nuggets of information that come out. So feel free to share anything if you want. I work for a living too, so I've got a 40-hour plus week sometimes. It's just not practical for me to keep abreast of everything. I try to take note. Sometimes some developers are producing so much information, it's just yet another photo or another this, that, and the other, and it all becomes kind of noise. And other developers are almost silent, they're running silent, and you just don't have any tangible information that's worth sharing. The occasional piece comes up and you're like, oh, that's interesting, but is it newsworthy? Is it is it a throwaway comment? Does it mean anything in the context of what everybody wants to know is when is the module going to be released? When are we going to see it in game? So on and so forth. So there's a good handful of products that I don't really have information on. Now, one project I was asked about was OctopusG's La-7 project, which has garnered some interest in the community, especially amongst the World War II fans. And the team conveniently published a video earlier today that I was watching, showcasing some of the new exterior modeling and flight modeling that they've been working on. It's a nice looking module and definitely will provide some much needed Eastern Front type conflicts. I can see, the La-7 going up against some of the 109s, but it's difficult to make anything of the short cinematic. It's just a couple of minutes long. With regards to a release date or outright progress on that flight model, those things are very, very complex. I know they've done a lot of work into the complex engine management system, but accurate flight models are also usually one of the more complex challenges for developers to get right out of the box. And as I've mentioned with like the Hornet earlier, this is an aircraft that's getting a complete flight model reject, according to WAG. So these things are subject to tweaks and tuning, especially where former pilots have productive input. If you don't have former pilots, you may not have necessarily all the data available to you. Sometimes new data becomes publicly available, or there's community feedback which provides helpful information. So it's always a work in progress to a greater or lesser degree. We've seen that with the F-14, for example. Not all of that community feedback is actually realistic or helpful too. We've seen that with Casmo and the Apache, where players were talking about the flight model being broken, and then Casmo was pointing out like, yeah, the way you're flying it is not consistent with best practice or general operational guidelines. And then you're telling that the developer has broken the flight model, or it is broken. So sometimes the feedback on these things is not necessarily tactile information. That is best faith for what the developer has produced. If you don't know anything about how to fly helicopters, you're not really the best person to kind of indicate how the flight model's broken, especially when you have an SME basically telling you, yeah, because you're doing it wrong, dummy. So, there's a lot of wiggle room in that environment for feedback, but I digress. Now, thinking about the World War II aircraft, it's these are true museum pieces now, and I suspect we're not too many years away really from some of these aircraft not really even flying anymore. It's just going to be too expensive. It's going to be too risky to insure them or to worry about them breaking. Just because of their rarity, especially some of these rarer aircraft where there's only a few flying models, like the Mosquito, for example. So some environments like DCS may be the last place we can truly fly some of these rarer warbirds, like the La-7, as they were intended, sadly. So I'm excited to see this aircraft in game. Let me know what you think. Hopefully we'll have some more information on it soon. We're still waiting for information on the Corsair. I did look. I haven't found anything there. We haven't seen anything on ED's Hellcat. So no news on certainly not even an AI 0, which a lot of people are looking forward to with the Corsair. That was touted as a possibility. So lots and lots of things in the works, lots and lots of things to keep waiting for and hearing more information for. And as information comes to hand, I'll do my best to get it to you. ED also published a little bit of an image here of the Chinook, which I was curious about. I guess it could be an indicator of news to come. Before that happens, though, Wags did a major video, a good video here on the work that the team have been doing with the F-16's Datalink system. Now, this has been updated to allow for more flexibility in setting up members and donors for data sharing across the connected network of aircraft that are involved. So it's a pretty complex thing to recreate, is my understanding, and I'll refer you to the video for more information about what WAGS is referencing here and how this kind of functions in game, primarily at the mission editor process where a lot of this is set up, although you can make some in-flight adjustments. This is the kind of thing that probably won't mean a whole lot for solo players, I don't think, but it will be of great benefit for virtual squadrons and also multiplayer servers. Certainly it represents, as I said, a lot of work to recreate this kind of interface, which WAG also said there will be more videos about this prior to the next open beta patch and it being released. The video generated a large number of questions about integrating the system with the Hornet as an example of another aircraft that's likely to fly with the F-16. It will interface with that, but it won't be able to integrate directly with aircraft like the A-10C2, which was brought up, which runs a different system. So WAG's clarified it is for the fighter channel only and doesn't affect things like the C2 surveillance aircraft. AWACS apparently are accounted for as a separate asset and they don't need to be assigned as a member or a donor of the network. So it's pretty cool stuff. And as I said before, this represents some pretty sophisticated programming and work to get this up and running, representing or mimicking at least a system that exists. It got me thinking a lot. Even with this level of sophisticated detail, it kind of makes you wonder how much SA aircraft in the current world that we have, like the F-35, and how much they have. Because apparently the SA that the F-35 has just leaves Gen 4 aircraft in the dust. And even with the Gen 4 stuff, it's the kind of information that World War II pilots would have only dreamed of. And I'm reading an interesting biography right now of a New Zealand ace by the name of Owen Hardy, who described a flight leader who was shot down because of poor SA, basically, and information. And apparently he was looking to get above German 109s who would come in high across the English coast and then zip along the coastline and then back across the channel to France, causing kind of a problem, this constant cat and mouse game. So the aim was to kind of get above the German aircraft to pounce on them. And apparently he was vectored in via radar to, I think, something like 16,000 feet or whatever it was. Hardy, though, pointed out that many of the pilots who had experienced or had experience with the radar vectoring and direction had worked out that the early radar just wasn't all that accurate to the measure for altitude and always added several thousand feet to the prescribed angles that they were provided. So rather than sitting atop the enemy aircraft, the poor pilot involved was directly below them and he quickly became easy prey. Sure enough, he was shot down and fortunately he was able to bail out and survive the encounter with some valuable lessons learned. So again, we've come a long way with SA. It's hard to believe. And I think with aircraft like the F-35A these days, I think we're probably close to task saturation, or certainly could be without proper training for some of these modern pilots. It's pretty darn cool. Now, speaking of the real world, and I don't often do real world news, but just this discussion that we've had with DCS roadmaps and real world systems like the Datalink recreations, it kind of reminded me about people wishing ED had more competition, which, I think is a fair comment. But in effect, the usual complaint is to kind of keep them more honest and working more quickly on touted or in the work products. That's always a complaint, how long some of these things take to bring into game, and maybe some competition would move that along. Maybe, I don't know. But I have to say, though, thinking about things like the Datalink system and how much work ED's gone into that system, I think any team leaping into a parallel combat flight sim with that amount of detail has got their work cut out for them. It's plain and simple. ED has stamped itself as the major player for the last 15 years in this genre. So good luck embarking on a sim that comes close to matching ED's product, matching DCS World from scratch with the current levels of fidelity that we have. Again, I appreciate the sentiment, and sure, it would be nice to see another product out there, but I just doubt there's a non-commercial team right now who can actually do it. Now, speaking of non-commercial teams, what about commercial teams? Because in the last 18 months or so, we've seen quite a lot of information or references to NOR and Metria's impressive system, which some communities have speculated could be a public rival for ED's DCS World. Certainly with the limited information that we've had, the eye candy definitely matches. All right, it's running, Unreal Engine 5, I think it is. It's pretty cool looking. Some of the physics and stuff like that. Some of the, I saw the tube from a refueling sort of whip up as you get that connection, which is not modeled in DCS World. It's pretty cool looking, right? There's no information yet. There's no evidence that I'm aware of that indicates concretely, anyway, that Metria is going to sell that product as a public version. Their military-based training software being available as a public product is not a thing right now. And I think there is, at least currently, a reason for that. So over the weekend, Metria announced that they have been selected by the Defense Innovation Unit, or DIU, recently as the sole software provided for the virtual training for air dominance with the 19th Air Force and also the U.S. Air Force Education and Training Command. It's a pretty illustrious, probably, contract, right? Now, the company will provide basically what is a high-fidelity T-38C as a virtual aircraft. I think, was it Gonki that said, because DCS pilots were asking about this, and he said that's not an aircraft you'd want as a trainer or something, but maybe I misread that. Anyway, so they're going to provide this aircraft as well as, it's a virtual aircraft, as well as a cockpit prototype and a synthetic training environment for what is known as FBF, or Fighter Bomber Fundamentals. So while DCS users may be very impressed with the product's visuals, certainly I'm one of those people, it's pretty clear to me that this product, it's really a very, very niche market. It's fulfilling a specific need that the Air Force is looking to fulfill. And that is the training of pilots without having to put iron in the sky, as the phrase goes. You'll hear this on Air Force podcasts with people that are still in the industry. And really in what are increasingly aging, but also fewer available number of airframes that the US has in its arsenal right now, whether that's trainers or whether that's F-16s and so on and so forth. Sure, where the F-35 program is massively expensive, and that's going to be the platform going forward. But in the interim, we've got a lot of old aircraft up there that are flying well beyond their expected lifetime. So there's a lot of controversy about this, and I see it come up a lot in podcasts like The Merge, really interesting podcast with Paco Benitez as the leader there. And you'll see it in the Bro Chat discussions and the Afterburn podcast, which is run by John Rain Waters, a former F-16 pilot. And these are extremely insightful kind of podcasts discussing defense matters and pilot training programs and all the other subsidiary issues that come with it. DCS comes up, from time to time as a discussion point. So in fairness, though, Gonki, I think it was, who brought up in the podcast a few weeks ago that DCS, as it stands right now, could easily be used as a limited flight trainer. And ED has shown that with aircraft like the A-10C, which is one of its core full fidelity modules and has been for some time. So it's a testament, overall to the quality of the DCS product. And it's grown leaps and bounds in the last several years, especially now with the growing number of peripherals we can use to embellish your flight experiences. So I wouldn't knock ED too much. I think, sure, there are some faults with the product, and there's a lot of bugs. A lot of people are flying open beta. It's expected to be buggy. But when you look at the work that they do and some of the layers behind things, it's pretty good for what it is. And it's pretty good for a non-commercial product available to the public. And sometimes you have to put things in context. So, that's my 2 cents. Let me know what you think about any of those topics. I think we've got a good product on our hand. I've been enjoying flying some of the aircraft that I've been flying, the F-15 in particular lately. Looking forward to some of these World War II birds too. And they're growing niches within the genre too. We've got more information coming here from Grinelli Designs on the F-100 that they're working on. So they've been doing some photogrammetry here. So we've got a lot of modules to look forward to. We just don't know when they're going to be introduced in the game. So, okay, that brings us to another SITREP. Thanks for tuning in once again. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I appreciate all the feedback as usual. Oh, and wait, we've got a winner from last week's 10,000 subscribers milestone. Hurrah. And the random winner, I went through the numerous responses. I appreciate those of you that hashtag DCS World. Had to be an active member, and you had to be interactive on that particular video. That was the stipulation. So only Napalm, congratulations to you, sir or siress. Only Napalm. Congratulations. Reach out to me via email. You'll find my email somewhere buried in plain sight in the channel's information section. Just shoot me an email, man. Let me know it's you, and we'll touch base from there, figure out how to facilitate the prize. Remember, it's a module of your choice, but we can work something out too. So Shoot me an email and we'll try and make it happen this week sometime. All right, there we go. Thanks again, everyone, for the support. We'll see you next time on the DCS SITREP. Thanks for tuning in, like I said, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment in the comment section below. See ya!
Sniper 4 flight, let's check in with showtime on button 1. Button 1, Sniper 3. Roger. Sniper check. 3. Showtime, Sniper 4 flight, checking in as correct. Sniper 4, showtime, your pod is tracking. Proceed to India and call ready when able. Sniper 4 flight, check in ready. 3. Fighters ready.